Welcome to the Better Together podcast. I'm your host, Kyla, and today's a really exciting episode because this is my first visual episode. Please be patient with me because this could change. I have some gear I ordered, lighting and a mini tripod for my desk, and that hasn't come in yet, so I'm using a stack of books to prop my camera up, and I want to have some sort of more official setup eventually, but I didn't want to wait any longer to have a visual, so here we are. So today is, before I introduce the topic, let me read my Journey to the Heart entry, and this very much relates with the topic that we're talking about today, but let's get into the entry. So it's called Embrace the Unknown. How boring it would be if we knew everything that was going to happen. Yet we are always trying to peek around the corner and see ahead. If we knew everything that was going to happen, we wouldn't need to experience it. There would be nothing to learn, explore, or gain. We'd stay in our heads instead of our hearts. So often, it's the surprises of the moments and hours, the unexpected twists and turns that give meaning to our journey and make our lessons come alive. You are connected to truth. You are connected to divine guidance. You can trust and embrace your guidance from God. That means you will get all the visions, all the guidance, all the advice, knowledge, and wisdom you need. Not too much to spoil the surprise, not too much to neutralize the lesson. Just enough guidance to let you know you are never alone. So I liked that entry because today is very much about trusting your instincts and your path, whatever that may be, and kind of going with the flow and having more trust in the universe and your path. So I also want to preface to this mention God. This book does mention God. I personally am not religious. I'm more spiritual, so I look at that more as like a higher power or, the universe, that kind of thing, versus a actual God. So take it or leave it as whatever you believe. So today's topic is all about life transitions. In the last episode, Noah asked me a question about what my ideas of who I am have changed and how I feel about those changes, which provoked today's topic about transitional periods in your life and navigating times of uncertainty. This is sort of the moment of where I am in my life, so I thought it would be interesting to kind of talk about this topic and how I'm handling it, and I also want to hear about your guys' experiences, whether you feel like you're in a transitional time now, or if you have been in a transitional time before. How did you kind of handle that? And, if you are on the other side, what does that other side look like? And are you happier? So, how I kind of am organizing this episode is I asked, because I don't have all the answers about navigating life's transitions and uncertainty, especially since I'm going through this now in my own life, I decided to do some research and give GPT a prompt to help me think more deeply about all this. And so the prompt I gave was, how do I become my true self and live in my full potential? And I thought that Chat GPT came up with some really good advice, and I wanted to share that here. And so I'm just going to read what the answer to that prompt was. So, becoming your true self and living in your full potential is a journey of self-discovery, self-acceptance, and deliberate aligned action. So the first piece of advice is embrace radical self-awareness Explore your desires and motivations. Spend time identifying what you genuinely desire. Separate from any societal, familial, or self imposed expectations. Journaling can help uncover journaling can help uncover motivations and uncover insights into what feels authentically you. Recognize patterns and conditioning. Look at any patterns or beliefs you've adopted over the years. Are they serving you, or were they inherited from past influences? This awareness helps you step away from limiting your beliefs. So I like that piece of advice because it kind of forces you to think about how you're living your life now, what those patterns are, and becoming more aware of what you want to change and the things that you like to do, and kind of pursuing that. So the next one is heal and integrate past wounds. Acknowledge past experiences. Often, past experiences shape our sense of self and limit us, identifying and processing these experiences with compassion can help you feel lighter and freer. Practice forgiveness and release. If old pain or regret is holding you back, acknowledge these feelings. Forgive yourself and others and let them go. This helps clear emotional space for your growth. So basically, don't hold grudges and allow yourself to let things go. This is something I definitely have trouble with. If I am upset about a situation or upset at someone or something going on in my life, it's hard for me to just let that go. I kind of stew in it for a bit, and it ends up hurting me more than anybody else. So that's kind of how I took that. The third piece of advice: build self-trust and intuition. Listen to your inner voice. Start noticing how your body feels or what your intuition says in various situations. This can guide you toward choices that resonate with your true self. Take small, authentic actions. Trust is built through consistent, aligned actions. Take small steps that are authentic to who you want to be and celebrate them. I thought this was interesting because I think I in past episodes I did talk about what my in the 8 life lessons, now that I'm 28 episode, one of my lessons that I talked about was knowing the difference between like a gut feeling and like an anxiety feeling, and how those have physical reactions, and listening to that and listening to your body. So I think it's interesting that it came up with the chat GPT answer came up with something that I have taken and learned myself. All right, so the next one is define and live by your core values. Identify your values. Spend time considering what values matter to you most, whether it's freedom, creativity, authenticity, or growth. Once you know these, make choices and commitments that reflect them. Let go of what doesn't align. Gradually release commitments, routines, and even relationships that don't honor your values. Living authentically often requires releasing what no longer serves. Create a vision for your life. Envision your ideal life. Picture what living at your full potential looks like, both in the big picture and in your day-to-day life. Ask yourself how you feel, what you do, who you'd be with, and what you'd accomplish. Set clear, attainable goals. Break down your vision into tangible, achievable steps. Consistent progress towards these goals keeps you moving closer to your true self. I love this because you're kind of imagining whatever change that you're making, or whatever transitional period you're in where you're making changes, because I feel like any transitional period of your life, there is transition, obviously, and change that comes with that. And change can be really scary, but kind of imagining in your head things that are happy and what your ideal like life or a self looks like, or what you're doing, can be exciting and motivate you to take the steps that you need to get to that next place. And also, I think it's hard to, make a big step without creating those smaller goals and pretty much like baby steps to get there. So for me, like I always make to-do lists and like little things that will gradually get me to the bigger goal. So it's little steps, little goals that I make for myself for a bigger goal and the bigger picture sort of thing. All right, the next one is prioritize. I cannot talk today. Prioritize self-care and self-compassion. Nurture Nurture your physical, emotional, and spiritual well being. When we feel whole, it's easier to show up as our best selves. Prioritize practices that make you feel connected and at peace. Practice self compassion. Give yourself grace, especially when growth feels challenging. Remember that becoming your true self is a process, not a destination. So for me, for my like own self-care, I like to do things like skincare routines and things that just make me feel like calm and happy. So like I like reading or spending time outside if it's sunny, and like doing things that I'm not constantly like my job requires me to be in front of a screen and on a computer constantly. So like for my self-care, I like to do things that take me out of that, where I'm not staring at a screen. Like I said, spending time outside and like reading a book and doing something creative even. So painting or taking my photos or, different things like that that are sort of like a creative outlet for me. And also I think another big thing is self-talk and like telling and being nice to yourself. So in moments where I notice that I have like I'm thinking about something negative, or I'm judging myself, or not, just generally not being nice to myself, I try to become aware of that, step back and say something, even if I don't believe it in the moment, that is nicer. And because it's sort of like you want to treat yourself how you would treat a good friend. You're not going to be mean to a good friend or a friend in general. You're going to be nice to them, and you're going to take care of them if they are going through something. So it's that same kind of mindset. All right, the next one. Cultivate an open and growth-oriented mindset. Embrace uncertainty and change. Stepping into your full potential often involves entering new and uncertain territory. Embrace change as part of growth and remain open to evolving. Surround yourself with inspiration. Spend time with people, ideas, and environments that encourage growth. The company you keep can reinforce your true self and remind you of your potential. I think change is the scariest, hardest thing, especially when making very big life decisions. And if, being in a transitional period, I feel like you tend to have to make hard decisions that will ultimately better yourself, even if it doesn't feel good in the moment. So that is something that I am trying to be better about, is being okay with change and trusting that things will be okay on the other side of it. Obviously easier said than done, and I think it takes a practice. And I actually have a book recommendation, something that I recently read. I'll get into it in a little bit because I want to finish reading this advice from the Chat GPT. All right, so the next and last one is align with purpose and passion. Identify what gives you energy. Reflect on activities, causes, or ideas that make you feel energized and fulfilled. Aligning with what gives you life is a powerful way to live fully. Focus on giving and contributing. Living in your full potential often involves contributing to the world around you. Think about ways you'd like to make a positive impact and let that guide your actions. I like this because it's kind of relates to like the things that you feel passionate about and what you like to do, and kind of honing in on that rather than, life expectations or societal expectations about what you should be doing with your life, take that away and like think about what makes you feel good. And for me personally, the reason I bring that up is because I think for me, I like to help people make a difference and just and the way I do that is by telling stories. I'm in journalism and documentary, and my goal has always been to be able to share stories that need to be told. So I wanted to bring up a book. It's called can't remember what it's called, but it's The Tools, and it's The Tools and then something else, but it's by, I'll also link it below, but it's by Jonah Hill's therapist and another. All right, sorry about that. My memory card got full, so we are trying this again. So I was just explaining the book that I just finished, and it's called Tools something way, I can't remember the rest of the title, but the main title is The Tools, and it's by Jonah Hill's therapist and and another psychologist friend, whatever. So it's by these two psychologists, and they kind of give you a set guideline on how to like basically live your full potential and be the happiest and not have regrets when you're, older. And I took away a lot from this, and I just wanted to read. I also journaled about it. I want to read what the tools are, and I did mention it in the last episode, one of the tools, but two of these tools really resonated with me, and I feel like they go with this sort of idea of like life transitions and like how to handle them and actually take steps in the right direction to make some changes. So and they also, it's interesting because even when I was reading this GPT response on their advice, it some of this came up in the book and the tools that I read. So let me see. So the first tool is the reversal of desire. And in this tool, they talk a lot about how it's important to do the thing that isn't necessarily going to feel comfortable, because any sort of change is uncomfortable. So we as humans, and I also want to just preface that, like, obviously I'm not a therapist, I'm not a professional. These are just things that I have kind of taken and am learning from. So that's the advice that I'm sharing and things that I believe in. So take it with a grain of salt, whatever, if however you feel about it. But for the reversal of desire, it's about not allowing yourself to just do the thing that's comfortable if it's not really suiting you anymore. So it can be any situation. It can be, like a change in jobs, or, a change in relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, really anything that like isn't suiting you anymore, but it is a comfortable thing. Like, you have to force yourself out of that. So that's why it's called the reversal of desire. And it's about getting unstuck in a place of feeling stuck, and about actually like taking the step and not just like knowing that this is something that you don't like anymore and you're going to stick in it because it's comfortable and easy to do. It's challenging yourself to do the thing that doesn't feel good right in this moment, but ultimately at the end of the day, you will be happier by taking whatever that step is. The next tool is active love, and this is interesting because active love, the chat GPT AI whatever bot kind of mention this in their own advice about letting yourself forgive and letting go of situations that make you angry. And this is more, the active love tool talks about how if there's, let's say you're really upset with someone and you just cannot get past it, and every time you think of them it's like it makes you angry, instead of having those angry thoughts, you send love and light, metaphorically, to that other person, and you allow yourself to let it go. And obviously it's easier said than done, like a lot of these tools are, but it's a practice, and it's about, continuing to, every time you think of that person that you're upset with, instead of acknowledge that you're thinking about that you're getting angry and worked up and that's hurting you, and instead change that to sending love to that person, and continuing to practice that will eventually, hopefully, the idea is that you will be able to let that thing go and move on from the situation. So the next one is inner authority. So inner authority is like kind of having confidence in yourself and your decisions, and whatever step you take in that transitional period. And that's kind of how, because these tools, again, are like for every aspect of your life, any situation that you're in, but how I'm thinking about it is more like through a transitional period. So how I look at inner authority is like having the confidence in your decision to actually take the step that you need to take, and trusting in the path and the process, and whatever higher power exists within the universe. And I know this sounds kind of crazy, but just like having trust that things will work out because you are feeling a certain way for a reason. So take that next step and trust that it's going to be okay. The next one is the grateful flow. So I kind of look at this as just like, for me, I get very caught up in getting bitter. I get very bitter about certain situations. If I feel like trapped, or like, I don't know how, I'm not explaining it correctly. I don't know how to kind of explain this, but like if you're unhappy somewhere, or you feel bitter about something, or jaded, because we all get very jaded about situations, rather than staying in that feeling of, oh, nothing is ever going to work out sort of thing, nothing is going to work out sort of thing, it's more about like being grateful for like the small things that you don't always think about. Like for me, I'm like, I feel very thankful to have the stability I do, and I feel very thankful to be able to afford the things that I can do and create sort of this lifestyle for myself that's comfortable, that I'm happy with. So it's things like that, being grateful in those moments, even though there are other things in my life that I'm not very happy with, but I can't really change at this very moment. And then this tool is called Jeopardy. And so for me, this tool and the first tool, the reversal of desire, were the two tools that really hit home for me, because the Jeopardy tool is about this tool is in place to reinforce the other four tools, to make you do them and make you start, changing whatever you need to change in your life, taking steps towards that growth, whatever it may be. And it is basically lighting a fire under your ass. It's like putting yourself in a situation where it's an emergency, dire situation, and you have to take the step, because it's hard to make a change or take the next step in whatever it may be if you're comfortable somewhere and there's no emergency to get out of that. So for this, it's like you kind of create an emergency. And the way that this tool is used is you think about your like deathbed situation. Like you're on your deathbed and you're looking back at your life, and you look back and like you would have done things so differently, and now that you don't have the time to, you have regrets because of that. So for me, my deathbed situation is staying, looking back and like staying stuck somewhere and never making a change because of my comfortability. So I think about those things a lot. And I think that kind of makes me, that's kind of what pushed me into this transitional place is I don't want to end up years from now, I'm on my deathbed and I'm unhappy with how I lived my life. I know everything is, things happen, and it doesn't necessarily mean that because I don't do this here in my life now that I'm not going to be happy later, but I think it also does mean that. So it's like a double-edged sword in a way. So I really liked this book. I think that it's not just, it is a self-help book obviously, but it's not just like a book that, it actually gives you something to work with, and I think that's important. And it's not just like a mindset change or being more positive. It's like literally practicing and using these tools that it tells you to use, and and actually forcing you to take steps that you need to take in order to live a happier, better life for yourself. So this next part of the episode, I wanted to ask some thought-provoking questions that I'll answer, and I would love for you guys to also participate and answer and send in responses based off of these questions, because I know that whatever anybody, it's very dependent on, these questions are answered very dependently on, you know, what your life situation is and what's going on and whatever. So it's very personalized. So I came up with 10 questions. They're very deep, so I also didn't answer these ahead of time, so I've read the questions, but I haven't really thought much about how I would answer them. So I think that's kind of a cool thing too. It will be interesting how I actually answer some of these. So the first question is, when I look back on the last decade, what have been the most pivotal moments and how did they shape who I am? So I think this question is, I think a lot of people would have many different answers for this. But for me, I'm thinking of two very specific events that happened in my life in the last 10 years. And that is losing my dad and losing my brother very suddenly and traumatically. And it kind of shifted my whole perspective on life and how I also live my life. And it's also affected obviously me in negative ways as well. So some things I've learned and grown from these experiences, but also having had such traumatic experiences have made me feel sort of set back in a way. Like I feel emotionally behind that from where I would potentially be if I hadn't gone through these experiences. Like for an example is I get very, very attached to people, and I think part of that is, and like everybody gets attached. We're humans. We need connections and all of that stuff. But what I mean when I get very attached is like it's almost it's in an unhealthy way where I rely too much on relationships and friendships and am more codependent, if that makes sense. And so I think I'm like that because I've had sudden and traumatic loss where it's like one day your life is normal and the next day your entire world and life is done a 180 and flipped upside down. And so I get very attached to people and life situations. And so it makes it hard for me to take steps that will change because it's so uncomfortable because I've been forced to do it during very traumatic events in my life. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I'm kind of rambling about that, but I also think I've learned a lot and even grown from these experiences in terms of my outlook on life. Like I kind of mentioned this, I think I mentioned this actually in the last episode with Noah, where I kind of just don't really feel like there's a point in anything. And it sounds really depressing just saying that out loud, but it's actually been very positive for me because it makes me not look at the bigger picture, or maybe makes me look at the bigger picture more, where I'm just like, I'm going to live my life how I choose to live it, and I want to choose to live a happy life and not be constantly stressed or sad about things. Like, I want to live a positive, happy life because you don't know how long you have, and anything can happen, anything can change at any sudden, at any moment, really. So for me, choosing to believe that there's not really a point in anything and that I should just live more carefree, basically. So I think that's been a good thing. I'm also a lot more, I don't think serious is really the right word, but I prioritize things differently now too. Like before these experiences, I really like my career and my work and was like number one. And now it's not. Like, my relationships with the people I love and surround myself with are number one, and my family and friends will always be so much more important than my job and what I'm doing and work. And I think that's also a very big shift in how I look at things and what I do. All right. So the next question is, am I holding on to any beliefs, fears, or past experiences that could be holding me back from change or growth? I think that this kind of goes hand in hand with the last question because, like I said, I don't want to say that these like traumatic experiences and losses have defined who I am, because I think I'm so much more than the trauma that I've experienced in my life, but it has shaped a lot of who I am, if that makes sense. It doesn't define me, but it has shaped me in many ways. And so I think for me, something that holds me back is getting very codependent and attached to people. I think it affects every aspect of my life. I think that it makes change scarier. It makes I feel like I will stop myself from doing something or taking an experience because I'm so anxious about what will happen. An example of this would be, I get very, very anxious when someone in my family is taking a road trip, like a long road trip somewhere, and has to drive a long time. And this is just a small example, but like I immediately am like, something bad's gonna happen. And it makes me really, really anxious. And so things like that, I feel like, hold me back because I'm constantly thinking about what will happen instead of living in the present moment. So, and I think it just like holds me back from growth too, because it makes it harder for me to take whatever the step I need to towards change. That is going to suit me more than, not taking that step, whatever. Let's see. What parts of my identity, relationships, or work feel like they come from a need for external validation rather than my own inner fulfillment? So I think for this one, the idea of like success and what success means, just in like a societal perspective, I feel like success is looked at having a good job and making a lot of money and being able to, you know, live like a big grand life, and especially like what your job is. I feel like that is how I have kind of always gone about my career, is what is based off of like societal expectations. And I've gone into this before, but it's just like I have chosen a career path where I can feel like stable and and have consistency, instead of like living, because I there's so many different ways you can go if you're in like the video, photo, even journalism like career path. You can do so many things. You can like freelance and live like that way, which is a little bit more risky but maybe more rewarding in a lot of ways, because you may be working on more creative projects or bigger projects versus working in a more corporate-y setting or having like a consistent job, whatever. So I think I've always looked at success for me as being stable, and I think that that perspective has also shifted a little bit now, because now I'm kind of thinking about success as what makes me happy, and like what are the things that I want out of life that will make me happy and not feel like I'm not satisfied, if that makes sense. And I talk about this in my last I think it was 2 episodes ago, where I had my where I talk about like career and how being quote unquote successful doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't necessarily means being satisfied. And so I'm trying to shift outside of what those societal how what you're supposed to do, really. What is the natural path, and just looking at more what I want and what is going to make me happy, and trying to live life that way, because in turn I think I'll still be successful and I will be happier. So let's see. Are there any dreams or goals I had earlier in life that I abandoned? If so, why? I think I don't think I really abandoned my dreams. I think that I've shifted and like changed what I wanted to do from when I was younger, and I think that's very normal. You know, again, you're expected to, right after high school, go to college and major in something, and I think it's unrealistic. You major in something and you are supposed to pursue that, and that's your career for your life. And I think that it's unrealistic to put pressure on literal, like, sorry, there's a bug. Okay. Literal, like, 17 and 18-year-olds to have their entire life figured out. That's so young, and it's like things change. Like, you may start off wanting to do one thing, and the next 4 years later, let's say after college, you find you don't actually want to do that. So I think that things shift. For me, I've always known that I wanted to do some sort of I have always wanted to do some sort of like media and storytelling and photo. I started off in photo and doing photography, and that was the start of that. But it's shifted now, because I studied photography in college, but then I moved to New York and I found out that I explored a little bit more about what I was, I was doing. I was exploring photography and video, and that's how I got into video and documentary. And documentary kind of got me into like journalism and that kind of stuff. So everything kind of, it connects my path. Everything I do has kind of connected, but it's also like shifted because I was like, I'm going to be, when I was in starting out in college, I just wanted to be a photographer, whatever that meant. I didn't even know specifically like what type of photo I wanted to do. And I think at a certain point, I just wanted to do like fine art photography where I could be in galleries and stuff. And that's not always realistic to, be able to make enough money and do that. Some people do it. That's awesome. But that doesn't work out for all of us. And it wasn't going to work out for me. And a lot of how I've led my life is like, I want to be stable. I want to be in a stable place. So now I'm trying to shift that as well because I'm like, I'm never going to take a leap and do something that like is actually really meaningful to me if I stay in this mindset of I just need to be stable. I think that it's important to also like take those risks. Again, I feel like I am going on a ramble per usual in every single episode, so I apologize if this is just kind of going in circles and not making sense. But all right. How do I define success, and has that definition shifted over the years? I kind of answered this already. I used to look at success as like having a good job and making good money and doing, again, quote unquote, what you're supposed to do, whatever that means. And now how I look at success is much different, and it's more about living life in a way where I am not only happy but also satisfied, because you can't be happy all the time. You are human and you go through many different emotions, and that's normal. And if you didn't go through those emotions, then that would actually not be normal and probably not healthy. So for me, it's not only about like feeling just like happy all the time. It's more about being content and satisfied with how I'm living my life, and actually like doing the things that I want to do in my life, and creating goals and making those goals happen. And that is what success is to me, is living my life authentically, based on my values, and being able to create goals and make them happen. So that's what success. I don't look at it as I need to be rich, or, I need to like have the best job title. It's more about being content and satisfied with where I'm at, so I can enjoy the present moment and enjoy it with the people I love, so that is the point, I said there's no point in life, but that's the point in life, is to do things that you love with the people that you love and not take things too seriously. All right. What advice would my younger self give to me right now, knowing what she wanted and believed in back then? So I also said this, I think, in a past episode, and my younger self would tell me to stop doing the thing that I don't like and do something that makes you happy, and live your life doing the things that you love to do, and figure out a means to make those happen. She probably wouldn't say it exactly like that, but when I was younger, I would always say to myself, like, you need to do something that makes you happy, and this meant like job wise. You need to do something in your work and job that you are going to be happy doing, and it's not always going to feel like work. And obviously, like, as you grow up and you need stability and to be able to pay your bills and, take care of yourself, you kind of have to compromise with the things that you really want to do, because it may not make you the money that you need. So I think that my mindset on like, just do the thing that makes you happy has shifted, but I think it needs to come back to that and be like, you should do the thing that makes you happy, because my younger self is right. Like, those are the things that you're spending most of your time doing. Most of your time is spent, working, really, and like that. So do something that excites you and makes you happy. And if it's not suiting you, then try something different if you can. Obviously, it's a privilege to be able to just stop if you can do that. You know what I mean? So, who am I when I'm alone without the influence of work, relationships, or societal expectations? This is such a deep question. I don't know, because I am never like out of all of that, if that makes sense. I don't know how I would answer that. I guess I would say, all right, I'm sorry, my card was full again. I think there's actually something wrong with this card. So, again, please have patience with me when it comes to the visual. I know this setup I will get better at it, I promise. I'm just not used to doing this yet. But anyways, the next question I think I was at, who am I when I'm alone without the influence of work, relationships, or societal expectations? So I was trying to answer that. I don't know. It's hard to say. I think I would be... How do you take those things out? I don't even know. I think I am a spiritual person. I just want to be satisfied and feel content. And I think that goes into like who I think I am as a person. I don't know. That's a very hard question. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I would be curious of what you guys have to say about that, and what you guys think. Who are you? Like, how do you answer that question? I don't know. And I've actually been asked that before randomly by someone, and I didn't know how to answer it then. Anyways, what habits or routines have I adopted over the years, and are they serving my growth, or do they feel like coping mechanisms? I think I'm very stuck with, I like routine. I'm very type A person, so I have a very specific like routine. I get up, get ready in the morning. Like, I have my routine of like that and how I get work done. And I think that sometimes I'm a little too specific about things, or too type A about things, and have to have everything so planned, to the very, to a T. And I think that it stops me from living in the moment, and like just like letting things be and living in the flow, and not having a plan, not needing a plan always, at least, and just, living life more presently. So I think that is for sure a big one. Excuse me. And then the last question, am I truly allowing myself to experience the full range of emotions, or am I avoiding certain feelings to maintain the status quo? And for me, this is like how I interpret this is that, am I choosing to stay comfortable in certain areas in my life? And instead of like taking those steps and making changes that I need. And I think that I do stay comfortable in a lot of situations, and that's why I'm in a transitional period, because I'm trying to not do that. I'm trying to live in a way where I'm living more truly to myself and the things that I believe in and the things that I value, and trying to be more satisfied and content in my life, and not constantly being in this headspace of feeling not knowing what to do or not knowing how to take the steps or just feeling bitter about certain things and like allowing myself to stay stuck in those certain things. I want to find more meaning in what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, and I think that's part of that transition and figuring that out. So yes, I think that I stunt myself, if that makes sense, by staying comfortable instead of taking the risk, which I don't think is a good thing. I think I should take the risk, and I advise everybody to always take the risk if you can. And if you're unhappy, obviously. If you're content and you're happy, stay in that. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode. But I am curious, like, I'm wondering what you guys think of these questions, how you would answer them yourselves. Are you currently navigating a transitional period? Have you in the past, and what did that look like for you? Do you guys have any questions for me on this topic? I hope that by sharing so much of kind of my life experiences and what I've gone through and what I am currently going through, I hope that it helps. It's always like, it's scary to open up about certain things and such personal things, but I do it because that's what this podcast is about. It's about sharing my experiences and kind of creating sort of a community where you can feel comfortable opening up and being vulnerable. So I hope that this topic provokes an engaging conversation with this podcast community, and I hope that it helps to hear someone else's experiences. So thank you once again for tuning in. Please remember to rate, like, comment below. I have my personal Instagram, my podcast Instagram, and the podcast email linked below, but I'll also just read what those are. You can follow me at my personal Instagram, which is Kyla_Milberger. You can follow the podcast Instagram, which is _bettertogether_podcast. And you can write in questions, comments, concerns, whatever, stories, whatever you want, at thebettertogetherpod@gmail.com. And I will see you next Sunday. Bye.